conceptualizing the film. The look of the set, the costumes, and so on was developed in concert with the script itself. I had an image in my head for a long time and then worked through the details of how to realize it through talking with the other people working on the film. I really had a particular interest in the use of color and how the filmmakers brought that meaning across to me in the film. I discussed this as well with my former classmate who is actually from China. His name is Kang Soon. And we compared our thoughts on each color with blue, red, green, and white particularly used in the film. Black is used as well, but we thought these four were the most prominent. When I saw the color blue, I thought sad. When Soon saw it, he thought rare. Where I saw love in the color red, he saw revolution and celebration. When filmmakers used the color green, I saw nature, whereas Soon thought peace. And in the color white, I thought pure, whereas Soon thought death and a funeral, which typically I might associate with the color black. We're looking at Chinese film and foreign films in general. Subtitles and the translation of those subtitles also affect the meaning and the signs that we see within the film. When we see Chinese films or foreign language films with subtitles, we can certainly be challenged not only to keep up with the visuals, but to read the text as well to match the visuals as we progress through the film. We can think of two perspectives regarding subtitles and the translations of these subtitles. Does the image do most of the work, or does the image serve to attract the audience to read the text that we see, to read those subtitles? In general, foreign audiences won't be able to comprehend the plot and the subtext without these translations and subtitles. Certainly in some DVDs, we can change the settings so we can have our native language as the spoken language to eliminate some of these subtitles, but we may not get the same meaning that was originally intended. The subtitles and the translation of the subtitles decode the images into a meaning for us. We incorporate the visual world with the written world as well. If you've ever seen a US film in another country, it can certainly be a different experience. I remember seeing Driving Miss Daisy in Mexico and just how the experience was so new. The subtitles might have been certainly a challenge, but it was such a great experience to get the reality of that culture and then relate that with the reality of the film, which I was already familiar with. As we look at the origin of the movie Hero, particularly the Chinese film market, we want to consider a lot of elements that can also change our meaning and enhance our interpretation of the meaning of the film. One is being the, quote, Hollywood invasion that was experienced. A lot of films like Titanic were imported into the country and eventually became the #1 movie. A lot of producers from other countries, not only the US, see China as a very large, lucrative market that they want to get into, but also how the Chinese film production industry itself wants to get their messages, get their films out to the people within that culture. We can also consider the economic impact of ticket prices to see the movie Hero in China at that time, which was the equivalent of $4.20 in the US dollars. So it was a very expensive endeavor, something that was more seen as a privilege that a lot of people weren't easily able to do. Hero was also at the time the most expensive Chinese film production ever, with approximately a $30 million budget. I love the Chinese film genre and I have such a love of films overall, but particularly to learn about other cultures. Being displaced here in the United States and maybe not having the means to travel there myself, I can experience a great world and understand a lot more about their history, their politics, and their ideologies, and how they match up with our culture, that we see all the similarities and differences between them, and kind of refine and go through the meanings in our life, not only as an individual, but in our community and our country as well, and how globalization of all these films, not only our films to other countries, but other countries bringing their films to us.
As Americans, we are the ultimate consumers of not only Chinese films, but of other Chinese imports, such as clothing, shoes, electronics, luggage, and furniture. Therefore, it behooves wise college professors to integrate China into their curricula. Edison marketing professor Ruth Barney discusses with Professor Eileen Thompson the ways in which she does that in her classes at Edison.
Holly, the trip that you're taking is going to be incredible. It's the first trip I went on in 2007, just before school started here in the fall of 2007. I did the exact same trip that Edison is taking. I landed in Beijing. I spent 4 days in Beijing, and I went to Xi'an and saw the terracotta warriors and all the museums and the temples and the pagodas and the things that you'll see there. And then I went to Shanghai. So I did the exact same route, and a little bit different timing of the different cities, but I think everything from art to music to history to political science to English to sociology, just anthropology, everything. It's all there for all these different people to see and absorb, and the students, I think, will learn in just multi-disciplines. I guess I made a point of, when I was in China the whole time, 2 times, looking at the culture and trying to see it a little bit differently. So my take would be different from your take. When you go to China, you'll see it as a writer. I saw it as a business person. And so I was looking at the television ads and the billboards and thinking about the culture, what the people are interested in, how the economy functions, how hard it is to cash a check, how few people have credit cards, just a lot of things that probably the average American doesn't really look at. But when I went to China, I saw some different things, and most of them from the standpoint of trying to understand the fact that we've got 1 billion plus customers in China who are gradually becoming more and more middle class people. I read a statistic not too long ago that now they're estimating that over 300 million Chinese people have entered the middle class. And there's an organization called McKinsey that's a big consulting firm. It says they've actually segmented the middle class in China into 5 different categories, but 300 and some million in the middle class, well, that's as many people as we have in the U.S. So we tend to think of China as peasants, poor people who work the land or might be living on a small income a day or a year, but in fact the Chinese are really turning into consumers. So from a marketing point of view, I found it really interesting. And I thought just to look at it through a different lens, it's a way I saw it, but I thought it was so great that Edison is taking the trip to China, because all the different lenses you'll be looking through will really enrich the whole experience, I think, for everybody who's going.
What suggestions would you give for faculty to use this in their classrooms?
Wow, suggestions. Well, I can talk about some of the things that we've done in the business curriculum, because marketing-wise, I do it almost every day. And I think the trip to China has made it more important to me to have my students do marketing case studies, for example, that are truly global in nature. The students who are graduating this spring will be doing a case study and presentation with outside evaluators in their cases on Harley-Davidson. And one of the aspects of Harley-Davidson that's really important is the growth of the middle class in China. And people not only want cars, they want motorcycles, they want golf clubs, ski vacations, and they want Harleys. So it's kind of interesting. The whole highway system is developing in China more and more to almost resemble that of the United States, except for their highways have faster speed limits. So we did some currency trading, fake currency.
And what's the currency
a couple of weeks ago? They used the yuan, and this is, I didn't counterfeit this, just so you know, but because the backs are blank, but they used the yuan, and we did a currency exercise. I had bought candy, Skittles, Starburst, whatever, and they were trading currency, and we had different exchange rates and so forth. And the exchange rate it's a definite issue right now between the U.S. and China, because China has been more or less protecting their currency. Students have been reading about that in the Wall Street Journal, which they're required to read in our basic economics class, and so they understand there are some issues with the exchange rate and China's, I guess, hesitancy to allow the rate to float freely as all other currencies do. So we discussed that, and then we priced candy bars with these. And the interesting